In 1988, the Los Angeles band Jane's Addiction released their major label debut, a bombshell of an album called Nothing Shocking. It was this incredible mashup of heavy metal, punk attitude, and psychedelic rock that sounded like nothing else, and on it was a sprawling 7-minute epic that became an anthem for alternative rock fans. But what most people didn't know then, and a lot of people still don't, is that the song's cryptic title, Ted Just Admit It, was aimed squarely at a man on death row. It was a direct plea to one of the most notorious serial killers in history, Ted Bundy. Sadly, though, one of the members of Jane's Addiction nearly died at the hands of another murderer, and we're going to explore all of it in today's video. To understand a song as audacious as Ted Just Admit It, you have to first understand the band that created it. Jane's Addiction was formed in Los Angeles in 1985, born from the ashes of frontman Perry Farrell's previous gothic rock band cite. Teaming up with bassist Eric Avery, the two recruited powerhouse drummer Stephen Perkins, and a truly virtuosic guitarist in Dave Navarro. The band's name itself was written as a tribute to Farrell's housemate Jane Bainter and her struggles with addiction, immediately signaling that this group wouldn't be shying away from the darker aspects of life in LA's underground. They emerged in the heart of the 1980s Sunset Strip scene, a world dominated by the spectacle of hair metal. But Jane's Addiction was something entirely different. Their sound was a chaotic yet beautiful collision of their diverse influences: Farrell's goth and post-punk leanings, Avery's love for bands like Joy Division, and the heavy metal and rock backgrounds of Navarro and Perkins. They became a sensation in the LA club scene, known for their wildly unpredictable and powerful live shows. While other bands were chasing a formula, Jane's Addiction was creating a new one, blending metal, funk, and psychedelic artistry into something that felt dangerous and utterly new. This raw energy was captured on their first release, a self-titled live album that was recorded at the Roxy in 1987 that led to them signing a major deal with Warner Brothers Records. It was that backing that they entered into the studio to create a record that would solidify their legacy. If you heard Ted Just Admit It, it was a mesmerizing puzzle. You could be forgiven for thinking the song was actually called Nothing Shocking, since it's the album title and the most prominent lyric. The track kicks off with a slow yet heavy bass line before it just explodes into these furious, almost violent moments. Perry Farrell's voice is all over the place. One second it's a siren wall, the next it's a sinister whisper, delivering these fragmented lines about cameras and his sister, who was no longer a virgin. It was strange, it was compelling, and it was deeply unsettling. But that was the whole point. The title alone was a bizarre and specific challenge. Ted Just Admit It. Who is Ted? If they were to call it OJ Just Admit It, and they recorded it maybe a decade later, it would have made more sense upon first listen. For most people, it was just part of the band's mystique. They weren't exactly a band that shied away from the dark stuff, but the real story behind the song was way more direct and disturbing than anyone guessed. To really get the song, you have to picture the cultural climate of the late 80s. And hanging over that culture was the shadow of Theodore Robert Bundy. When the song was recorded in 1988, Bundy was in Florida State Prison waiting his execution. He was this figure of both pure terror and morbid fascination. He had brutally murdered at least 30 young women across 7 states, and his crimes were characterized by horrific violence. What made Bundy so uniquely terrifying was his whole persona. He was handsome, articulate, and charismatic. Even Hollywood cast Zac Efron as Bundy in the Hollywood portrayal of his story. Bundy was also a former law student who completely shattered the stereotype of what a serial killer was supposed to be. He even represented himself in court. The split between the normal guy and a monster underneath made him a media sensation. His trials were on TV, turning these horrific crimes into a media spectacle. Even after his conviction, Bundy refused to confess to everything he had done. He played mind games with investigators, dropped hints to delay his execution date, and this refusal to admit this guilt just became his trademark. As his execution on January 24th, 1989 drew near, the media frenzy was really off the charts. Crowds gathered outside the prison chanting, "Burn Bundy, burn." It was in this atmosphere of media-fueled hysteria that Jane's Addiction created their masterpiece. The link between the song and the killer goes way beyond the title. It's baked right into the song's DNA. About a minute in, the music pulls back and you hear a man's voice, calm and eerily rational.
There's gonna be people turning up in canyons. There's gonna be people being shot in Salt Lake City.
Now, for years, many fans and sources have claimed that this is an actual audio sample of Ted Bundy. Farrell claimed it was Bundy's voice lifted from a video. It brings the killer's manipulative presence right into the song. The song's structure seems to mirror the psychology of Bundy's crimes. The calm, almost seductive verses are shattered by the explosive chant, "Sex is violent." This line directly tackles the nature of Bundy's acts. In his final interviews, Bundy tried to blame his crimes on a pornography addiction, creating a last-ditch excuse that twisted sex and violence together. The song rips that idea apart, throwing it back not as an excuse, but as a horrifying statement about the world Bundy created and the pain that he caused. "Now Sister's Not a Virgin Anymore" are stark, uncomfortable images that refuse to look away from the fallout of that very violence. But if you think the song is only about Ted Bundy, you're missing the bigger and frankly more disturbing picture. This is where the band turns the camera around, pointing the finger away from just one man and towards society and the media in general. Jane's Addiction wasn't singing about the killer, they were holding up a mirror to the media and the public that turned him into a celebrity. The lyrics hammer on the role of the camera and television. Farrell sings with a sense of accusation. Later, he drives the point home. The TV's got them images, it's not shocking. This was the band's real target. In an era where the 24-hour news cycle was just getting started, real-life tragedy was being packaged as entertainment. Farrell's lyrics argue that the constant flood of violent imagery makes us numb to the real horror. The album's title, "Nothing's Shocking," is right in the song, tying the specific evil of Bundy to a wider cultural sickness. Their line, "Now the news is just another show with sex and violence," was a brutal takedown of how human suffering was just being sold for ratings. The public spectacle around Bundy's execution, with its cheering crowds and morbid souvenirs, seemed to prove the band's point in real time.
Each day, the courtroom is filled with spectators drawn by a fascination with Theodore Bundy himself or by the gruesome details of the crimes.
Every time he turns around, I kind of get that feeling, no, he's gonna get me next,
But yet you're fascinated by him.
Very, very. Every night when I go to bed, I just, I get very scared. I shut my door and lock him,
I'm not afraid of him. He just doesn't look like the type to kill somebody. You try to imagine yourself in his place and to see how he's feeling, looking at the pillows with blood stains and everything, and if he really did it or not.
According to one psychiatrist, it is a mixture of fear, intrigue, and in particular, sexual attraction.
And so, yes, I do think this is, in an underlying sense, a sexual attraction, using that word very broadly for the moment.
The song suggests that by being fascinated, the audience is really part of the problem. It blurs the line between monster and the voyeur, suggesting that we're all taking part in a culture that feeds on this type of violence.
The young women themselves aren't too sure what it is that attracts them to the trial. Are you a little scared when you look at him?
Yes, it scares me to be in the same room with them, but I know there's other people in there, so.
Why do you do it?
I don't know.
Ted Just Admit It is one hell of a confrontational piece of art. On one level, it's a raw, angry scream at a monster, demanding the confession he never truly gave. It channels the terror of his crimes through the chaotic sound and chilling lyrics. But on a deeper level, the song is so much more. It's a powerful critique of the media sensationalism that feels even more relevant today than it ever did in 1988. Jane's Addiction saw the world becoming numb, where real tragedy was flattened into just another piece of content to be consumed. They saw the bizarre relationship between the criminal and the camera, and the society that watched, completely captivated. The song isn't just about Ted Bundy's evil, it's a warning about the culture that made him a star. And it leaves us with a final haunting question that sticks long after the music stops. In the act of watching, do we become part of the problem? In a poignant real-life contrast, this very institution, the television media, played a crucial constructive role in Dave Navarro's life. In the world of rock and roll, tragedy is often woven into the music, but some stories are so dark and so personal, they shape an artist's entire life. For guitarist Dave Navarro, the tragedy that defined him didn't happen on stage or in the headlines. It happened when he was just 15 years old. This is the story of a brutal crime that went unsolved for years, leaving a future rock star haunted. And it's an incredible story of how after nearly a decade, justice was finally served, not by a detective's breakthrough, but by a primetime television show. March 4th, 1983 was supposed to be just another normal night. 15-year-old Dave Navarro was scheduled to spend it with his mother, Constance Connie Navarro, at her condo in West Los Angeles. But a last-minute change of plans sent him to his father's house instead. A twist of fate he later called divine intervention that likely saved his life. That night, the unthinkable happened. John Riccardi, Connie's obsessive and estranged ex-boyfriend, broke into her home. He shot and killed both Connie and her good friend Susan Jory, who was visiting at the time. One report noted that Connie's body was later found horrifically stuffed in a linen closet. This was no random act of violence. It was a terrifying end to a campaign of stalking and harassment. After Connie ended their relationship, Riccardi tormented her, showing up uninvited, tampering with her car, and making menacing phone calls. Just a week before the murders, the situation escalated in a way that would haunt Dave for the rest of his life.
Knew who did it.
Oh, yeah.
How did you know he was the guy who killed your mom?
Well, I kind of put two and two together. I mean,
Right.
the guy had a gun to my head a week
Oh, he
earlier.
did? I didn't know that.
Yeah. So, like, there was a point where he had broken into the house and held me up and, like, handcuffed me and, like, basically got pretty violent and then let me go.
Who was this guy? I mean,
were they broken up at the time? All
Yeah,
this was
yeah. See, this
one
was-
of those
this
things?
was-
he was
like-
so in love with her that if he couldn't have her, no one else could.
I mean, that's what you would think. I mean, there is no logical explanation for something like that.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think in that irrational thinking, that's what was
Yeah.
going drugs and all that stuff. And I appreciate, you suggesting understandably I went to that.
Absolutely.
At the same time, though, I can confirm that there was part of me that used that trauma as an excuse to pretty much get away with whatever I wanted.
Terrified, Dave didn't report the incident until after his mother was gone. In the immediate aftermath, John Riccardi just vanished. He fled Los Angeles, leaving behind a double homicide and a traumatized 15-year-old boy. For 8 years, the case went completely cold. The police had his name and motive, but Riccardi had disappeared without a trace. For Dave Navarro, these years were spent in a fog of grief as well as fear. As he channeled his pain into the groundbreaking sound of Jane's Addiction, the unresolved horror was a constant companion. After 8 years of dead ends, a new kind of crime fighting changed everything in 1991. The case was featured on the popular TV series America's Most Wanted. The show aired dramatic reenactments of crimes and profiled fugitives, hoping a viewer somewhere would recognize that face. Dave Navarro participated, bringing his story to a national audience. The show broadcast John Riccardi's face, his description, and the details of his crimes across the country. The impact was almost immediate. Within days, a viewer in Houston, Texas, recognized the man on their screen and called the show's hotline. The tip was solid. After nearly a decade on the run, FBI agents found John Riccardi in a stylish condominium where he'd been living under an assumed name. The fugitive's time was up. The TV show had done what years of traditional police work could not. It found a killer.
The Bureau mailed flyers out to every plastic surgeon in those states. We were able to locate a plastic surgeon.
John Riccardi was extradited to California, and in 1994, a jury found him guilty of 2 counts of first-degree murder and sentenced him to death. However, though, in 2012, the California Supreme Court overturned the death sentence due to a technical error in jury selection. Riccardi was then resentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, ensuring he would never be free again. For Dave, the verdict brought legal finality, but it didn't erase the deep wounds and scars he had. His journey of healing was long and complex. In 2015, he released a deeply personal documentary called Morning Sun, which focused not on his music, but on the murder, his subsequent spiral, and his journey towards understanding the trauma. As part of his journey, Navarro came face to face with Riccardi in San Quentin State Prison. The meeting was not filmed, but Navarro described it as an awkward exchange. He said he went in expecting to feel rage, but instead realized Riccardi was just some old dude dying in jail. It was part of the process of walking through his deepest fears to heal. The story of Dave Navarro's mother is more than just a true crime case. It's a powerful look at the lasting impact of trauma and the resilience of the human spirit. It's the story of a boy who lost his mother in the most brutal way, channeled that pain into art that would touch millions. And he also battled his own demons in the long shadow of that loss. At its core, it's a stunning example of how the media and the public can change the course of justice. A television show broke an 8-year-old case wide open, leading to a killer's capture and finally bringing a measure of peace to a family that had long been denied it for so long. This contrast underscores the complex duality of modern media, capable both of exploiting tragedy for ratings and enabling real-world acts of justice and closure. Let me know what your thoughts are on the song Ted Just Admit It and America's Most Wanted role bringing justice to so many families. Let me know in the comments section below, and if you found the story compelling, make sure to subscribe for more incredible rock and roll stories. Take care.